Sup losers, I'm OTG197. I'm definitely the best Nuzlocker in the world. I mean, fuck all these other guys. Alright, I'm kidding, just getting into character cause today we're getting a bit toxic. That's right, it's a hardcore Nuzlocke of Storm Silver using only poison types. Now I assume most of you know what a hardcore Nuzlocke is, but in case you don't, here are the rules I will be following. Only the first Pokemon encountered in any area can be captured, in this case only poison types. If a Pokemon faints, it is considered dead and can no longer be used in battle. All battles are played on set mode, so we get no free switches when we knock out an opponent, no menu items can be used in battle, we cannot overlevel gym leaders or the league before challenging them, and if a battle is ever lost, we start over from the beginning. Additional rules in the description. I don't use legendaries, so no Toxic Plate Arceus. Yeah, but these will be the Pokemon we can use, so let's see how these poison types can handle a hardcore Nuzlocke of Storm Silver. So this town I live in isn't really much of a home to me. Family life is rough, I never met my father, only knowing what he looks like from a picture that mom keeps around, and mom regularly steals my money to fund her habits. It's not much of a life, but at least everyone in this town knows not to mess with me.
Did you see me beat that dude's ass?
Yeah, what a loser.
As I was saying, I was raised on the hard streets of Newbark, and I get a lot of respect around. Alright, you know what? That's it. I'm leaving this dump, and no one can stop me. Oh. I can't leave without a Pokemon? Oh. Okay. Well, this dork gives me a Totodile, which I don't really want, but I guess it will do for now. I head out, just me, Totodile, and a backpack. Maybe somehow, some way, I'll find my place in this world. 'Cause it sure isn't here. Before I can make it to Violet City, I have to meet up with Cynthia, who gives me an Eevee, which is another Pokemon that I don't really want. I mean, I use it to beat up this tool from earlier. His name is Dark, and turns out he stole his Pokemon from Professor Elm's lab.
Whoa, that's cool.
Anyways, when I'm done with him, I throw these lame Pokemon in the box, and I instead catch something much cooler. A Wurmple. I make sure it will evolve into Cascoon, and then I catch a Weedle on Route 30, who soon after evolves into this butt plug thing, and then on the way to Violet City, it evolves again into a badass Killer Bee, and Cascoon evolves into this trippy moth. We can then catch a bunch of poison types to beef up our ranks. First a Zubat in Dark Cave, then I fish up Tentacool. This clown asks me some dumb questions, so I mug him and steal his Bulbasaur, then I catch a Bellsprout in Sprout Tower, and an Ekans on Route 32. The trainers in Sprout Tower have mostly grass types, so getting through them is a piece of cake, and so now we can go ahead and face the first gym leader, Falkner. So Falkner has me a bit concerned, because although Poison isn't weak to flying, our team effectively is because we've got several bug and grass types. Either way, I try to figure out what I can do here, and my intuition tells me that this battle needs to be put on the back of Beedrill, which with the buffs it received in this game, make it quite strong early on. So the goal here is to set up against the lead duo. I have our Ekans paralyze it with Clair, and then damage it so it will roost on our switch to Bulbasaur, who I use to weaken it with Grouse and set up Leech Seed. In this case, I'm not able to do that though, as Bulbasaur goes down and the plan fails spectacularly, as I'm never able to get Beedrill in to set up, and so we're unable to go very far with Murkrow taking us out. On our next attempt, we're able to set everything up how we want it. We lower Doduo's attack, get the Leech Seed on it, and get Beedrill in. And our goal is to set up Hardens so we can take Aerial Aces easily throughout the rest of the battle, and Focus Energy so we can use our Sniper ability to crit our way through his team. Unfortunately, we take a crit aerial ace, which ruins our plan, and without the Beedrill hard carry, the rest of the team has no shot. And then in attempt 3, the Doduo is being really frustrating. It keeps growling our Beedrill after we get it in, and we can't have reduced attack, so I keep having to switch in and out. I don't fully understand this AI. Most of the time it never does this, but sometimes it keeps doing it again and again. But either way, when we eventually do get to start setting up, we again take a crit aerial ace, which is curtains for us. Okay, well in attempt 4, we get our setup mostly how I want it. I only got up 2 hardens, usually I'd want more than that, and we use our Oranberry, which I would like to still have, but thankfully none of the aerial aces crit, and I take out Doduo with some Twin Needles. This brings me to level 16 where Beedrill learns Cross Poison, which with its boosted crit rate and our focus energy will give Beedrill a 1 in 4 chance to crit and one-shot the rest of the team, especially with its sniper ability. Chatot gets one shot even without the crit, and then we score a crit on Swablu and Murkrow for 2 more one shots. However, we can't score one on Pidgeotto, so we take an aerial ace, and then thanks to its Oranberry, it's just out of range to go down to another Cross Poison as we fail to crit again, and we go down to its aerial ace. But Pidgeotto also goes down thanks to us poisoning it. Great job, Beedrill. RIP. This opens us up to finish the battle with a wing attack from Zubat against his last Pokemon Farfetch, who is a fighting flying type in this game, so it's super effective. Tough fight, but glad Beedrill was able to carry us through. Salute to the fallen. 1 badge. Moving on, we make our way through Union Cave, and outside of it we can get a Krogunk, then in the forest we can catch Badoo. In Azalea Town, we meet this sketchy guy who gives us the TM for Thief, which lets me go back to encounter more wild Krogunk so that I can mug the shit out of them. You see, they can hold the item Black Sludge, which is an insanely good item to steal and essentially gives our entire team leftovers. Once I've gotten 6 of them, I'm done terrorizing the Krogunk population and go on to terrorize these Team Rocket losers in the Slowpoke well, and I can also catch myself at Ghastly here. We clear through the gym trainers and go on to face Bugsy. I lead Zubat against Butterfree, and he pretty pointlessly uses Rain Dance. He has this on a few of his team members, I guess to eliminate his fire weakness, but I just put Butterfree to sleep, then take it out with wing attacks. Then comes in Yanma, and Tentacle can tank its hits quite well with its great special defense, and Bugsy's Rain actually comes in handy for us, boosting our Bubble Beam, letting us take it out in 2 hits. Then comes in Heracross, and I hit 2 Water Pulses as I take an Aerial Ace, and then Bugsy summons the Rain again, only benefiting us as I take it out. I get off a Bubble Beam against Beedrill as we take a cut, which is a grass move. I then decide to switch to Dart my Krogunk on another, and I miss a Rock Tomb, but then take it out on my second attempt. Then Scyther comes in, and this is a really awful spot for us. We have no safe switches, and I just have Dart go down to a wing attack. I bring in Zubat, hoping to live one and hit a Hypnosis, but it just cleanly one-shots us, and it does the same to Dustox and Ivysaur. It finishes off Tentacle, and then of course one-shots Roselia, ending the run. Yeah, I knew that Scyther would be a problem, and I would have to figure something out for it. Well, I do have some things in mind, but before I can get back to try against Bugsy again, I lose to Falkner twice. But then on the next attempt, I have my cleanest Falkner fight, where I get up 6 Hardens and we take Aerial Aces like a beast, getting us through with no deaths. And having my Ekans have Intimidate really helped make that possible, and I'm hoping it will make a big difference against Bugsy as well. Alright, well, going into this fight, I put a big focus into training my team up in its bulk with HP and defense EVs, because health management and taking hits well is going to be extremely important. This time, my Zubat is quite a bit faster, so it outspeeds Butterfree and takes it out just like last time. This time, I strategically use Bite to prevent Bugsy from healing Butterfree, and once again, Bugsy's Rain makes it easy for Tentacruel to deal with Yanma, and this time I switch to Ekans using its Intimidate to weaken Heracross, but we take a crit Aerial Ace to 14 HP. I bring in Zubat and put it to sleep, and then for another attack drop, I bring in Ekans, who I accidentally named Copperhead instead of Copperhead. That's okay, I will fix its name when we get to Goldenrod. I then send in Ivysaur, who can put it back to sleep after she wakes up, and then set up Leech Seed on it. and with the Heracross not being very threatening here, I kinda just use it as a mid-game Poke Center, healing my health on Zubat, Tentacool, and especially Ekans, and since I didn't let Butterfree use the heal, Bugsy heals Heracross, letting us keep this up for a while, which, believe it or not, was actually part of my plan. After our team is back to full health, I finish the Heracross with Zubat, the terrifying Scyther comes in, sets up Swords Dance as we thankfully connect Hypnosis. Hypnosis actually got buffed in this game to 70 accuracy, so not too bad of a chance to hit, but then I can switch to Ekans to get its attack down to +1. It stays asleep and I connect Rock Tomb for just under half, but this makes us faster, so I land another, bringing Scyther in range of its Citrus Berry. It stays asleep again and I connect a third Rock Tomb, which somehow does not kill Scyther. It wakes up and Copperhead goes down to Wing Attack, so unfortunately she will not make it to Goldenrod to fix her name. But she did everything we needed her to, and we will forever remember the legend of Copperhead. R.I.P. Alright, well, Beedrill can come in for the revenge kill and then get a solid hit on Bugsy's Beedrill, who U-turns into Pinsir. Our Dustox handles it pretty easily, its moves are really bad against her, and the same is true for the Beedrill, who we finish off with some Signal Beams, which we just learned, getting us past one of our hardest fights. 2 badges. At the conclusion of the battle, Zubat evolves to Golbat, and even our beloved Copperhead evolves from beyond the grave. It's really unfortunate she had a negative attack nature, otherwise she would definitely still be with us. Though, moving on from our loss, this guy is back again trying to prove he's the hardest dude out of Newbark, so we once again gotta quickly show him what's up. Usually, I'm not one for good deeds, but I can't move on without helping these 2 dorks catch their Farfetches? I don't know. And then I also have to help this lady out of the forest, but we finally make our way to Goldenrod, and we've got a few new encounters here, including Gulpin, who I name Aldrin, a Stunky I name Benzin, and then a Nidorina I name Toxaphane. As I've mentioned in other runs, I will name my rival in the next run after whoever is the first to leave a comment guessing the nickname theme. This one is kinda easy, but if you know it, comment below to be featured in a future run. Anyway, after getting Golbat a massage and having it hold the Soothe Bell, it actually evolves into Crobat much earlier than I expected, but this is great as we will now have some extra power as we go into our fight against Whitney. Against her, I lead Ivysaur and I put her Lickitung to sleep, then set Leech Seeds on it and switch to Ghastly expecting a wake up Body Slam, but it just sleeps, and then I go to Beedrill and U-turn out, again into Ghastly as it just uses Disable on wake up. She heals, but Thunderbolt and Leech Seed brings it into range to take it out, but I switch to finish it with Beedrill cause I want to be able to pivot to Ghastly again. After leveling up, Beedrill learns Toxic Spikes, and I set a layer up on Lopunny as it goes for agility, and this thing has only normal and fighting moves, so I can just go to Ghastly, who forces Whitney to switch into Wigglytuff, who takes a lot from Thunderbolt and the poison. I then go into my Nidoking, which I can have already because my mom bought us a Moonstone. Okay, I guess she sometimes uses our money on good things. Anyways, we take a Psychic, but I can finish Wigglytuff with Double Kick after stalling for some poison damage. Lopunny comes in again, which is just always going to be easily answered with a switch to Ghastly, who takes a big chunk out of Stantler, who she switches into. We dodge Zen Headbutt on our switch to Crobat, and then finish it with Wing Attack. She sends Lopunny back in, and you already know the drill. This time I double switch to Beedrill and hit her Clefable for solid damage, but she sets up Reflect, so we're not doing much damage, but then on our third Cross Poison, we get a crit to take it out. Lopunny comes back once again. I really don't know what she expects to accomplish. It would be cool if the AI could hard predict me and go to Miltank, but it's not smart enough for that, and on her switch to Miltank, her Lumberry cures the poison, but I go for Curse, which will put it on a brutal timer. I switch to Ivysaur, who doesn't do much other than take up some turns, and she heals before the Curse can finish her off, but I go to Crobat, who can put her to sleep, and then Wing Attacks and Curse eliminate the fat cow quickly. She only has Lopunny now, so Ghastly comes in to torment it one last time and close out the battle. Alright, first solid win on a gym leader. Having a ghost type made that pretty easy. 3 badges. After the battle, Ghastly evolves to Haunter, and I want to evolve my Roselia, but I'm not trying to do some stupid sports event, so put the shiny stone in the bag. Put it in. Okay, here you go. Please don't hurt me. Thank you. Alright, so now we can continue on and...
Hey, stop right there!
Oh, Beedrill, get him.
All officers, come in! I need backup on Route 36. Suspect wearing red jacket and yellow and black hat. Headed westbound to Ekritik.
Alright, well, now we gotta keep a low profile on our way to Ekritik. On the way I catch a Seviper, we make it there and...
Hey, are you OTG?
Who's asking? You a Fed? Alright, I think I can maybe get the cops off my trail if I hide out in this abandoned building, and here I find a Grimer and... oh. If it isn't my rival Dark yet again. I'm always down for an opportunity to knock this dude down a peg, and in this battle, we're never at a risk of losing, but his Kadabra puts me in a tough spot where I really have to choose who to sacrifice. Dustox looks like it could maybe make it out if we get a decent range on Psybeam, but Dark takes her out, giving us our first death. I finish up the battle and move on, but don't think I will forget this slight, Dark. Anyways, I think enough time has passed to come out from hiding, so I go on to face the Ekritik City gym leader, Morty. Against him, I lead Seviper against his Duskull and go for a crunch which takes it to the red as we get confused. I switch to Swalot as he heals and Protect to scout its moves to see if it's worth encoring it. Instead, I hit a Yawn and Protect to put it to sleep, and then I switch back to Seviper to crunch it again, but it wakes up and hits us with a Will-O-Wisp, which will weaken Seviper, but I can still take it out with another crunch. I decide to get rid of Sludge for Toxic, which Swalot learns at level 30, and then Haunter comes in, I take a Shadow Ball and paralyze it with Clair, then switch to Stunky, who takes it out with 2 Thieves as he misses Hypnosis. Gengar hits a hard Thunderbolt, but I'm able to get off a Smokescreen, and then switch to Swalot, who puts it to sleep with Yawn as we dodge another Hypnosis, and then I go to Ivysaur, who puts Leech Seeds on it. I switch Roserade in, and Gengar just continues to snooze, as I take it out with an extra sensory. I bring Swalot in for Shuppet, but it confuses us with Swagger, and Swalot hits itself, so I bring in Ivysaur to set Leech Seed again. I try bringing Swalot back, but we get confused again, so I switch around a bit, get him back in, hit a Toxic, and then stall out the Shuppet. Against Misdreavus, I switch to Ivysaur on a Will-O-Wisp and take a mild Shadow Ball before hitting Leech Seed, and then switch to Swalot, who hits Toxic again. Misdreavus traps us with Mean Look, but that's fine, Swalot has no issue handling her, and then the final Pokemon is Sableye. I hit it with Toxic and ironically encore it into Torment, forcing it to only use that, which makes it a sitting duck. Crobat comes in to clean up and get us the win. First time not sweeping Morty in this game, but it still wasn't too difficult. 4 badges. Now that we can surf, I explore some newly accessible areas and get some good training deep into Union Cave and against the Ace Trainer triplets. With my level cap increased, we can get some great new evolutions, including Tentacool into Tentacruel and Ivysaur into Venusaur. Another Fed tries to shake me down. Yeah, okay, Balba, like that's a real name. Anyways, I make my way through the lighthouse as is mandatory before I can head to Cianwood, where I first face Ucene, who I'm really salty at right now. We have no problem against him here, but he just wiped me in the run I'm currently doing at the time that I'm editing this one, so I guess y'all will get to see him beat me in the future, but not in this run. We're good to go on and face Chuck. So I don't believe we should have too much of an issue here. I lead Roserade against Primeape and hit an extra sensory which doesn't kill but takes him low enough to make Substitute fail and make Chuck waste his heal, as we could just finish it with 2 more extra sensories. Hitmonlee comes in and Tentacruel is crit on the switch in by Fake Out, but I set up a layer of Toxic Spikes as a high jump kick does a good amount of damage, so I switch to Crobat, who one-shots the very frail Hitmonlee with a wing attack. Poliwrath comes in, getting poisoned, and I switch to Swalot, who stalls for some damage, and I'm able to encore it into Hypnosis, leaving it unable to attack as the poison slowly takes it out, although it did manage to put my Tentacruel and Swalot to sleep. I bring Swalot in on Hariyama's Earthquake. I think at the time I was probably expecting Fake Out, but we take it reasonably well. I then switch to Crobat to avoid its next EQ, and I don't know why I bother switching to Venusaur. It can only hit Crobat with Cross Chop, but Venusaur takes it out, and then Hitmonchan comes in. I send in Swalot as its substitutes, which really only serves to make it go down to our stalling even quicker. His last is Breloom, who the Toxic Spikes actually help with its Poison Heal ability. It puts Swalot to sleep with Spore, but Roserade switches in to finish what she started. Breloom lives our extra sensory, and Chuck heals, but our next one hits a better range for the one-shot, finishing the battle. As expected, fighting types aren't too tricky for our Poison team. 5 badges. As always, after defeating Chuck, we gotta head back to cure a sick Ampharos and rescue the Safari Zone. You know, I set out on this adventure to be a bit of an outlaw, but now I'm out here doing good deeds. No, alright, this is a one-time thing. Team Rocket are a bunch of losers. I just did this so I could beat up on them. I don't actually care to help out the region or anything. I really just needed the training before my next gym. I have no problem clearing through the first 2 admins, Petrel and Ariana, and along the way, Haunter evolves into Gengar, and then Croagunk evolves into Toxicroak, giving us some extra power before facing Archer. In this fight, the enemies really love targeting our teammate Riley, which is good for the beginning as we can pick off some of their Pokemon, but eventually we're left in a 2v1 which starts to get a bit dicey. I nearly lose Crobat to a crit headbutt, but I'm able to roost up after putting Houndoom to sleep and then taking it out. And now Gyarados comes in, so we've got 2 extremely strong Pokemon able to double target us. I get roared into Venusaur, who hits a Sleep Powder on Gyarados, and then I switch to Gengar, who avoids a normal move from the Grunt's Gramble, and can then take out Gyarados with a Thunderbolt. The Gramble has a super effective lick, but it's still extremely weak, so we have no problem taking it out with 2 Thunderbolts. I then take a break with the team, having some fun in the Safari Zone. They have a swamp area that the guys just have an absolute blast in, and then Baoba thanks us for helping out and offers me a position as the owner of the Safari Zone. Wow, I can't think of a single place in this world where someone's ever believed in me or actually wanted me around. Maybe I was wrong about you, Balba. And while it is tempting to stay, I don't think me and my my team are finished seeing the world just yet. Next thing for us to do is go on to face the Olivine City gym leader, Jasmine. This might be tough with her immunity to our Poison Stab, but against Jasmine, I lead Tentacruel against her Metang, and a Surf is doing about half as I quickly find out this may not have been the best lead for me. Its Earthquake crits us, but we're just barely able to hang on at 5 HP. Expecting another, I switch to Gengar to avoid it with Levitate, but annoyingly it goes for Psychic, which does a lot of damage, but then I take it out with a Shadow Ball. Next is her Bronzong, and I hit a Hypnosis to put it to sleep and figure the quickest way to take it out will be to just attack, and we hit a Shadow Ball which amazingly drops its special defense, but it immediately wakes up to hit a Psychic that we can just barely live at 6 HP. And I should point out, had I not put it to sleep and gotten healing from Black Sludge, that would have taken us out. Goddamn, these close calls are stressful, but with that special defense drop, another Shadow Ball finishes it, and then comes in Fortress. I bring in Venusaur to set up Leech Seed on it and put it to sleep, and then bring in Nidoking to go behind a substitute, set up Focus Energy, and then finish it off. Steelix comes in, and I can't dig because its Earthquake can still hit that, so I just double kick for pretty insignificant damage, even with 1 crit, and then our sub is broken. I go to Venusaur, who can finish it off with 2 Giga Drains, and then she sends out Skarmory. I immediately bring in Nidoking, who hits a few double kicks, which aren't doing much, and I block its fly with subs, but then I have a better idea. I bring in Toxicroak, who despite its weakness to fly can block it with Substitute and freely set a Bulk Up on the turns that it goes into the air. We ultimately get up through Bulk Ups and then take it out with a Drain Punch, and on the final Magneton, you would think it's as simple as clicking Drain Punch one more time, and it really should be, but for some reason I decide to switch to Nidoking. Now Dig will one-shot, but after it goes for Magnet Rise, that won't work and we take a hard Flash Cannon. I switch to Venusaur and hit Giga Drain for okay damage. I then bring in Roserade, who does the same thing, but Jasmine ends up healing twice right before I can finish her, and after some paras, I now have to switch again, bringing in Toxicroak. Thankfully, when she uses Magnet Rise, so it's a free switch. Now, you may be wondering why I did all of this, and it's because my Toxicroak has a negative speed nature, so I thought maybe we'd be slower and get crit, so I was like, why not go to Nidoking? It's a totally free kill, not realizing that it had Magnet Rise. Turns out I was faster and didn't need to do any of this. I probably should have known that considering we outsped her Skarmory, which has the same base speed as Magneton. Here we get a para that makes the situation dicey for Toxicroak, and now I can bring in Nidoking, who just needs to hit double kick to finish off the battle. Incredibly stupid, incredibly sloppy, but no harm, no foul, I suppose. 6 badges. When we defeat Jasmine, the Battle Frontier becomes available to us, and here is where I Eevee train my team because we can get the power items as well as get some nice new moves on the team. Here I can obtain the TMs for Sludge Bomb, which will be nice to have. I then move on to the Lake of Rage where I meet up with this cringe lord in his stupid costume, and he wants to team up with me, but I wouldn't be caught dead with someone this lame.
Dragonite Hyper Beam.
Okay, I take it back. This guy's pretty badass. Well, together we take down the Rocket hideout, and it's rare, but I actually have an encounter in the hideout, a Weezing on one of the security tiles, which we thankfully catch with its ability to explode, and then moving on, the double battle against Ariana is tricky in spots. Lance's team goes down, leaving us in a 2v1, but we manage to pull through. I then train up our Scorpy into a Drapion to join in on our next gym fight against the Mahogany Town gym leader, Pryce. Pryce leads Abomasnow, setting up Hail, and I lead with Mercury, our Muck. We take a Blizzard, but the first thing I want to do is getting rid of the Hail with Rain Dance, which is a hilarious move on Muck. Just picturing a Muck dancing is pretty funny to me, but this is vital to the battle, as getting rid of that Hail is very important. I then go to Tentacruel, who takes a Blizzard easily, and I set up a lair of Toxic Spikes before I switch to Weezing, who can't one-shot with Flamethrower due to the rain, and I'm not sure what the logic was here exactly, but I switched to Drapion on a Blizzard, then Tentacruel in on another, and finally finish it off with a Sludge Bomb. I have to imagine there was some idea there, I can't remember what, but anyways, the Mamoswine comes in, which is incredibly scary. However, I make yet another kinda strange decision in bringing in Swalot on Earthquake, which it does live, but I'm not totally sure why I wouldn't just go straight to Weezing. I then do that, and she is immune to the Earthquakes and takes it out with Flamethrower after a good deal of Poison Chip. Dugong comes in and hits a pretty fierce Blizzard, and we do over half with Thunderbolt, but I have to switch, and with Tentacruel I can wall its moves easily, so I take the time to set up more Toxic Spikes as he heals twice, and then land a nice crit Sludge Bomb to take it out in 2 hits. Froslass comes in, and maybe the other Toxic Spikes wasn't worth it. 2 of his remaining Pokemon are unaffected by it. I switch to Muck, who eats Thunderbolt well and hits a Fire Punch, but Pryce's Blizzard luck continues as he hits another, and I have to switch, going into Tentacruel on the next, and then finishing it with Surf. Glalie then sets up spikes as I go to Toxicroak, and it was given the rock type in this game, so Drain Punch is 4 times effective and easily one-shots it. And then his last is Lapras, who just uses Perish Song and goes down in 2 more Drain Punches. Honestly, I can't say I played that amazingly. There were some questionable decisions on my part, same as our last gym, but yet again, we get by with no issue. 7 badges. I then come to find out there's something going on at Goldenrod, so I go to check it out, and turns out Team Rocket has taken the city hostage and taken over the radio tower. Okay, I've given Team Rocket a hard time, but I gotta admit, that's pretty badass. As a matter of fact, I might actually join in on this. Alright, let's finish off these losers once and for all. First, against Petrel, I have our Toxicroak one-shot Eradicate with Drain Punch, and then Venusaur does the same to Tangrowth with Sludge Bomb. Drapion can pretty easily take care of Hypno, Skuntank, and Toxicroak, and then in a Weezing vs Weezing showdown, we come out on top, even after he heals a bunch, and so we move on to our next battle, which is against... Ugh. Don't think I forgot what you did last time. We start by having Weezing face Honchkrow, and then after we land a Thunderbolt, he switches to Meganium, who sets up a Reflect but goes down to some Sludge Bombs, and then Alakazam comes in, who would be scary if we didn't have Drapion, who is immune to its Psychic. He gets paralyzed, but can one-shot it with Night Slash, and then I have Muck to handle Gengar, but he switches to Magmar, and knowing Psychic is coming, I pivot first to Drapion and then to Tentacruel, who surprisingly needs 2 Surfs to take it out as we get burnt. Gengar comes back in, and I have Muck check it for a bit and get a lucky para on Thunder Punch, which allows me to ultimately take it out with Tentacruel, and then finish off Honchkrow with Ice Beam. Last is Seadra, who we can knock out with 2 Sludge Bombs after the poison. That one was for you, Led. Moving on, the next battle we face is Proton, who hard switches his Electrode out for Camerupt, which is taken down by our Drapion's Earthquake. Then 2 Sludge Bombs from Weezing take out Tauros. Against his Weezing, it's hard to deal with quickly, but I'm able to stall it out with Leech Seed and Giga Drain from a Venusaur. However, his Crobat causes some issues as our Drapion can't handle it in the 1v1, so I bring in our defensively bulky Weezing, who can hang on after 2 Brave Birds and finish it with Thunderbolt. Electrode then comes in, and this spot is tricky because its Thunder will devastate our only 2 healthy team members, Tentacruel and Crobat. I go to Muck, who takes one, but is now in KO range, so I go to Venusaur, who takes it better, but the burn damage isn't helping us. Thankfully, he then goes for Rain Dance, and after I Giga Drain, the poison damage takes him out. His last Pokemon is Cacturne, but that is by far the least worrisome. Crobat comes in to one-shot it with a U-turn. Ariana is next, and I have Drapion lead and take out her Jinx easily, and then her Arbok takes several attacks from Weezing before she switches to my Milotic on our Thunderbolt, and I bring in Tentacruel, who is annoyingly stalled by her excessive healing, but can eventually take it out with Sludge Bombs. Her Perugly really has nothing for Gengar, so I bring him in to take it out with Sludge Bomb and Thunderbolt, and then Honchkrow comes in, and it's massively threatening, so I switch to Swalot, who can poison it with Toxic while taking some Brave Birds, and then I can bring in Drapion to tank another and finish it with Poison Fang after all the chip damage. I have Weezing finish what it started with the Arbok, and then I have Crobat finish up against her final Pokemon, Vileplume. The next 2 fights are scary with Giovanni's ground types, and it's going to require some precise preparation as we won't be able to switch our teams between them, so I bring the team I believe will be the best equipped to handle them, and against Archer he leads Zangoose as I lead Drapion. I hit a Crunch which gets disabled and then set up Toxic Spikes as I take a close combat and then take it out with Earthquake. Gyarados comes in with the Intimidate, but I bring in Weezing, who avoids Earthquake with Levitate, and then we take a bounce and actually can't one-shot with Thunderbolt, but I bring in Gengar knowing he will heal, and with a much higher special attack, his Thunderbolt gets the one-shot. Then against Houndoom, I bring in Tentacruel, and our Surfs are weakened by it setting up Sunny Day, but we still take it out with 2 and take little damage. Crobat switches in safely on his Drapion's Earthquake, and then I soften it up with Fly and U-turn before taking it out with my own Drapion. I bring in Gengar, who avoids Machamp's Earthquake, and I have to say, I miss when this thing had Levitate. It is so much worse now, but this significantly helps out our poison types dealing with ground moves. Anyways, it takes out Machamp easily, and then the final Pokemon is Scizor, and it's a bit scary after setting up 2 Swords Dances, but Tentacruel takes it out with 2 Surfs before it can do anything, and so now we're on to... Wait. Dad?
You dare call me such a name? A bastard like you will refer to me only as the Great Giovanni. I have heard a great deal about you, the boy who ended our operation in Mahogany and ruined our plans with the Safari Zone. I must say I am impressed you have made it this far. Your tenacity and power is proof that you may in fact be of my blood. You undoubtedly would do well in Team Rocket, but now you stand before I, Giovanni, with the choice to join me or be destroyed. So, what will it be?
I'ma whoop your ass! I'ma whoop your ass!
Alright, so with the fight against Daddy, I again lead Drapion vs Persian, and I switch straight to Gengar to avoid Fake Out, and then go to Weezing, who gets put to sleep, but eventually wakes up and lands Toxic. I then pivot some more from Gengar back to Drapion, and then set up Toxic Spikes before I'm put to sleep. He heals Persian, and then I pivot into Venusaur, who sets up Leech Seed and puts it to sleep after taking a rough critical hit slash, but I'm able to take it out with a Giga Drain, getting back most of my health. Then comes Nidoking, and on a switch to Tentacruel, its Ice Beam phrases me, so I switch to Gengar on the incoming Earthquake and take it out with a couple of Shadow Balls as we're brought to half. Kangaskhan comes in and tries sucker punching me, but our hypnosis makes it fail, though we still miss, but then thankfully hit our next one, and I can't explain why, but I decide to go to Drapion and set up a Toxic Spike, but we stay asleep as Kangaskhan wakes up and hits a strong Earthquake, so I go back to Gengar, put it to sleep again, and then have Venusaur seed it and bring Drapion back in. and I have no clue what I'm doing. Watching this back, I have to wonder why I'm not just attacking this thing. This foolishness goes on for a while, but eventually I take it out with Gengar, and then Tauros comes in. It scores an annoying crit on our switch to Weezing, but I Toxic it on the next turn. I then bring Gengar in on a double edge to stall some poison damage, then have Crobat come in to take it out with a fly after one more poison damage. Rhyperior comes in, and I should have planned around this thing better. All I can do is U-turn into Venusaur and pray for no crit on Stone Edge. We thankfully don't take one, and Giga Drain takes it out. Last is Nidoqueen, and I seed it as its Ice Beam isn't really doing a whole lot, especially after the recovery, and I then bring in Gengar, who finishes it with some Shadow Balls. Alright, that was way more complicated than it really needed to be, but with that, I've ran Team Rocket out of town and proven my deadbeat dad that I didn't need him then, and I don't need him now. My strength comes from my team. No. From my friends. Alright, that's enough sappiness. We've got a run to complete, and it's time to go ahead and make it to our last city, Blackthorn, to face Clair for the final gym badge. She leads with one of two Dragonairs, and I lead with Muck, who takes its Dragon Pulses very easily and knocks it out in 2 Ice Punches. Then comes in Gyarados, and I switch to Weezing as she sets up a Dragon Dance and hits a Waterfall, which we can take pretty well, and hit it hard with Thunderbolt, but it lives in the red. She heals, but our next Thunderbolt paralyzes the Gyarados, so we're then faster and take it out with another. Her next Pokemon is Salamence, and the set she has is a purely special attacker, so I bring in Tentacruel, who can tank Draco Meteor with its massive special defense, and then one-shot it with a Specs boosted Ice Beam. I have Vileplume take her second Dragonair's Outrage, but it's doing quite a bit, so I decide to have Swalot come in and take them instead and hit a Toxic, and then bring in Weezing to finish it off. I trade blows with Altaria before having to switch into Drapion, and I then set up Toxic Spikes for her Kingdra as she heals with Roost and hits another Dragon Pulse, so I bring in Tentacruel, who finishes Altaria with Ice Beam. Her last Pokemon, Kingdra, comes in, getting poisoned, putting it on a timer, but our team is beat up pretty badly, so I really need to manage my health here. Muck takes its Dragon Pulse well, but then she hits a Swagger and we hit ourselves in confusion, so I then have to switch again, this time to Swalot, who takes a strong Hydro Pump and can stall some damage with Protect, but her Citrus Berry restores her back above half, and then I bring in Vileplume on another Dragon Pulse, and knowing its Grass type should make her want to use Blizzard, I bring in Swalot, who lives it at 4 HP, and the poison finally takes her out, narrowly getting us through this fight with no deaths. Tentacruel would have been better to take the Blizzard, but I definitely didn't want to risk her randomly going for Dragon Pulse there. Either way, we've got 8 badges, and so we're moving on to the league. However, before we get there, we encounter our apparent half-brother having just lost to the Kimono Girls, so I really quickly show Lil Bro how it's done by beating them with no trouble. Espeon we have Drapion to handle, and the toughest one was actually Jolteon, but Venusaur handles that. The Kimono Girls then bring me to their sacred ceremony where they awaken Lugia, and you may think I've changed, but I'm still kind of an asshole, so I just kill it, and they seem pretty salty about that, but that's what they get for wasting my time. Anyways, we can now make our way to the league, where Lil Bro challenges us once again. You may notice his name in this run is 04 in MM. This is a reference literally only meant for one person, and you know who you are. Anyways, he is no problem for us yet again, and so we go on to face our first league member, Will. Of course, Will has a type advantage on us being a Psychic type user, but our Drapion's Dark typing will give us something to work with. I lead him and actually get outsped to take a nasty Ice Beam from Jinx, but our Crunch one-shots it and then does the same to Lunatone. I bring in Crobat on Solrock as it just goes for Embargo, then soften it up with U-turn back into Drapion, who takes its Stone Edge, then knocks it out with another Crunch. I was hoping to do the same to Xatu, getting a safe switch to Crobat knowing he won't Psychic with Drapion in, but he Thunder Waves me, so I just head straight back into Drapion and hit a Crunch which does not one-shot and we get paralyzed, but this gives me a safe switch to Gengar, who finishes it with Shadow Ball, and I then make the switch to Drapion on Gardevoir's Psychic, and its Reflect won't let Crunch one-shot, and we annoyingly get fully paralyzed on the next turn, and then I switch to Venusaur, who also gets paralyzed by Thunderbolt. I make these switches a few more times for some recovery with Drapion's Black Sludge, and then land another Crunch which just barely doesn't finish Gardevoir. Will then heals to full health, and I start to spam switch to slowly get Drapion's health back. We end up in this stalemate for quite a while, but I eventually get Gengar in safely and take it out with Shadow Ball, and then against Slowbro, being scared of its Psychics, I stall it out of its PP for the move by switching to Drapion on its Psychics and Toxicroak on its Surfs, which its Dry Skin makes it immune to. Eventually he runs out, and from there Toxicroak can finish him off, so we're moving on to Koga. So strangely, Koga leads a Venomoth, which is strange because it actually had its Poison type replaced with Psychic in this game, so a super effective Crunch from Drapion one-shots it. Then I bring in Crobat on Toxicroak's Earthquake and one-shot it with a Fly. Then on his Weezing I have Venusaur Sleep Powder it and then Leech Seed it, and it takes 2 tries, but I get Tentacruel in, who takes it out with Surf. His Crobat spams a few double teams, causing the strength on my Drapion to miss, but we eventually land one, doing half. This is a rock move in this game, by the way, and then thanks to its Citrus Berry, another one can't take it out, and I have to switch in my own Crobat as he heals to full, which is incredibly bad for us because with it getting 6 double teams up as we miss a couple flies, we now have no reliable way to hit it, and I end up resorting to spamming Roost against it as it continuously bombards us with Brave Birds and eventually takes itself out from its own recoil. I guess that's one way to do it. Thankfully, we take no crits, and on Muck I U-turn into Venusaur as he goes behind a Substitute, which we can't break, and we take a powerful Gunk Shot, and I then bring in Toxicroak and decide setting up Bulk Ups will be the best course of action to deal with this. His strongest move on us is Gunk Shot, which does little damage, and I'm able to take him out slowly but surely with some boosted Drain Punches and Poison Jabs. His last Pokemon is Tentacruel, and we get to see a bit of a strange interaction with the AI here. Its only attacking moves are Poison Jab, which we resist, and Waterfall, which we're immune to, not by typing but by ability, and here we see that even though the AI sees we're immune to Waterfall, because it's better against us on the type chart, it still prioritizes using it over Poison Jab, which actually can damage us. In other words, it's completely free and Toxicroak cleans up the battle for us. On to Bruno. His fighting moves aren't going to hit us very hard, and I start off by having Venusaur sleep and seed the Hitmontop, and I'm just going to take him out with Sludge Bombs, but then he switches straight to Lucario on one who is immune. However, I have my own immunity to its incoming Psychic in Drapion, who I switch to, and it takes out Lucario with 2 Earthquakes. Against Hitmonlee, I switch to Gengar, who won't be affected by Earthquake or fighting moves, and it hits a Stone Edge on us before we take it out with a Sludge Bomb and a Shadow Ball. Hitmontop comes out, and it can only damage me with Sucker Punch, so I just put it to sleep, then bring in Toxicroak, who gets up 2 Bulk Ups and goes behind a Substitute, and then we take out the Hitmontop. Hariyama has the bulk to lift Poison Jab at +2, but it can't even get past our sub before going down, and then Hitmonchan is a one-shot, and Machamp finally breaks our sub, but 2 Poison Jabs take it out, so we're moving on to Karen. Against her, we can rely on Toxicroak again to do most of the work. I use Crobat to take Intimidate from the lead Mightyena, then have Toxicroak set up a Bulk Up and take it out. Then against Honchkrow, I use a Substitute and catch it, thankfully trying to Thunder Wave us, so from there it breaks our sub with Brave Bird, but Poison Jabs and Drain Punch take it out. Then Absol is a one-shot from Drain Punch. Against Houndoom, I lose my +1 attack, and I'm worried about its Flamethrower, so I go to Tentacruel as it sets up Nasty Plot, but our Surf one-shots it, and then Spiritomb also sets up a Nasty Plot, but then just goes for Embargo, and we take it out with a couple of Surfs. Her last is Umbreon, and for whatever reason, I decide Drapion is the best thing to handle it. She gets off several double teams, making us miss a lot of our moves, and we're taking it out very slowly when we do land our attacks, but she can't really do much to us. We finally get her to low health, and she heals back to full, so we again just keep chipping away at it, and eventually even run out of PP, but I can just bring in Tentacruel to do the honors with a Surf to finish it off, and so we're moving on to the champion, Lance. Against his lead Gyarados, we can pretty much always have a free one-shot with a Thunderbolt user. In this case, Gengar does that for us, and then Aerodactyl comes in. I bring in Toxicroak and go for Poison Jab. Not so sure what the plan here was, but we take an Aerial Ace well thanks to our relaxed nature, and then he switches to Garchomp at the same time I bring in Drapion, so I switch to Crobat to avoid Earthquake, and then U-turn into Tentacruel as it now just goes for Dragon Claw, and then I take it out with Ice Beam. Lance then sends in both of his Dragonites, and on its own, I wouldn't usually trust Tentacruel's Ice Beam to one-shot them, but he's holding Choice Specs, so that gives us 2 easy knockouts. Then Aerodactyl comes back in and I bring in Toxicroak on Stone Edge, then pivot to Drapion on a weak Aerial Ace. We get off a super effective Strength, which does not finish it, but we do get the attack drop. Lance heals, but he can't do much as 2 more strengths finish off Aerodactyl, and then because of Aerodactyl's Torment, we can't hit Charizard with a strength, so I bring in Tentacruel, and he just goes for a Swords Dance, and we finish the battle with a one-shot from Choice Spec Surf. With round 1 of the league out of the way now, it's time for us to hop on the SS Aqua and head on over to Kanto. Now in Kanto, pretty much the entirety of it is gym leader matches, so as usual I'm just gonna jump from one to the next. However, before facing Brock, we can catch 2 members we haven't gotten yet, which are Ariados and Nidorina, who we haven't gotten yet because we found different poison types in all the places they appear in Johto, but we have them now. Anyways, now getting into these gym leader battles, the first one against Brock is really easy. We solo him by just spamming Giga Drain with Roserade. Not much else to say. The fight with the rival in Mount Moon is very easy. Weezing forces out Honchkrow, then takes care of Meganium. Drapion one-shots Alakazam and Gengar with Crunch, and then Tentacruel easily handles the Mech Mortar. Weezing comes back in to finish Honchkrow, and then Kingdra sets up double teams, which makes it annoying to take out, but it can't surf my Toxicroak, and when we eventually land some poison jabs, it goes down. Against Misty, I lead Vileplume and I take her Politoed's Ice Beam while getting rid of the rain with Sunny Day, but then we get Encored into it, which was not part of the plan, so I go to Tentacruel, misclick Surf, but then set up 2 layers of Toxic Spikes, then switch to Venusaur, who ends up taking a nasty Ice Beam, but it takes it out with 2 Giga Drains. Her Lapras sets up Rain again as I switch to Tentacruel and hit a Sludge Bomb, but it smacks me hard with Thunder, so I switch back to Venusaur, who finishes it with another Giga Drain. Starmie then comes in, and I now regret not bringing Drapion to this fight as we have to take its Psychics. Venusaur lives one, but we can't one-shot with Giga Drain, and then I take another as Crobat, and we thankfully avoid crits and can take it out with Cross Poison. I U-turn out on Lantern into Vileplume, who finishes it with Giga Drain and then nearly takes out Golduck, but its Ice Beam freezes us, so I send in Gengar to finish it off, and then take out Vaporeon with a few Thunderbolts, finishing the battle. Then moving on to Surge, it's not as complicated. I just spam Earthquake, first with Nidoking, but then we're confused by Jolteon Swagger, so I send in Nidoqueen to do the same thing and finish up. Simple as. Then on the way to face Janine, I play poorly against this ordinary trainer. His Electrode explodes on me, and unfortunately we lose Venusaur from it. Don't feel good about that one, but at least I do still have Roserade and Vileplume. Then on my way to Fuchsia, I catch a Quillfish, and when I make it there, I go on to face the third-rate poison user, Janine. She leads with an Ariados that accomplishes nothing with Agility and Spiderweb, as my Nidoking takes it out with 2 Earthquakes. Then she sends out Venomoth, who outspeeds us and hits an extremely strong Psychic that we just hang on from at 17 HP, and we one-shot it with Mega Horn. Again, it is a Psychic type in this game. Then Quillfish comes in, and I go to Drapion, who is paralyzed with Thunderwave and takes a Surf, but can finish it with another 2 Earthquakes. She then brings in her own Drapion, and I switch to Nidoqueen, who can take its Earthquake pretty well with its good bulk, and then strikes back with its own Earthquake that one-shots from a critical hit, and then another scores us a one-shot on her Toxicroak. Lastly, she sends out Weezing, who we can't damage much, and burns us with Will-O-Wisp, so I go to Roserade, who gets badly damaged from a flamethrower that burns us, so instead I bring in Tentacruel, who finishes it off with 2 Surfs, getting us another Kanto Gym Badge. Then I make my way up to Celadon through Cycling Road and...
Oh, hey OTG. I hope you're not running a type that's gonna destroy me again.
Yeah, so obviously we again have a really easy time with Erica using poison types. No sweep this time, and the Tangrowth actually puts us to sleep a bit, but by just spamming our poison moves at her, we get an easy win. Sorry, Erica. Alright, well now it's time for a type disadvantaged battle against Sabrina, and I lead Beedrill against Gallade, and you turn out into Drapion on its Psycho Cut, which doesn't affect us, and I then take it out with a Poison Jab. We won't get a 2-shot on Medicham, but its high jump kick will 2-shot us, so I switch to Gengar, whose immunity makes it faint from recoil. From there, I take out Mr. Mime, Hypno, and Wobbuffet from Specs boosted Shadow Balls, and against Alakazam, I switch around between Drapion to avoid Psychics, and then Beedrill to tank Focus Blasts. I just want to get some Black Sludge recovery with Drapion up to the point where I can take its Focus Blast. It just goes for Calm Mind, and I one-shot it with a super effective Crunch, finishing the battle. Against Blaine, I begin by setting up Toxic Spikes and Rain Dance with Tentacruel, and then from there I take out Rapidash, Camerupt, and Macargo with Surf. Our Rain runs out and Arcanine lives our Surf and crits us with Thunderfang, nearly taking us out. I'm worried about extreme speed, so I switch to Nidoking as he heals and I take it out with an Earthquake. Ninetales hits us with Solar Beam but also goes down to Earthquake, and then I guess I was worried we may not one-shot Magmortar, so I switch in Nidoqueen on a Sun boosted Overheat, which absolutely obliterates her, getting us our 4th death. RIP. This was probably completely unnecessary as I bring in Nidoking again and Earthquake does one-shot. The poison damage we got may have mattered there, I'm not sure, but now we move on to face Blue for the last Kanto gym badge. Before facing him, while training in the route outside Viridian, our poison types must have contaminated the area because this sickly green Dodrio shows up, and I just feel bad for it, so I decide to catch it, but then we're ready to take on Blue. Blue leads Nidoqueen, bringing back some painful memories. Too soon. But Roserade gets a flinch with Extra Sensory, which lets us take it out without taking damage, and then comes in Gyarados. Knowing it will likely go for bounce, I quickly hit it with a Sludge Bomb, then bring in Crobat to take the bounce. We're unable to take it out with Cross Poison as he sets up Dragon Dance and then heals on the next turn as I U-turn into Gengar, and then with his great speed we can still go first, taking the Gyarados out with Thunderbolt. Then Tyranitar comes in, and I do have Aura Sphere, but with the special defense raise he gets in the sand, I don't trust the one-shot, so I instead bring in Toxicroak to take a crunch and then one-shot it with Drain Punch. Then Exeggutor comes in, and I switch to my resident Psychic counter, Drapion. He comes in on an ineffective Psychic, and we get off a Poison Jab for good damage as Exeggutor sets up Trick Room. I bring in Crobat as he heals. Wasn't sure if he would have another one of those, but then I head back to Drapion on another Psychic, and then back to Crobat, who is put to sleep with Sleep Powder. I'm just trying to stall out this Trick Room, so I go back to Drapion on the Psychic again. It turns back to normal, so I hit a Poison Jab that he just barely lives. Drapion gets put to sleep, but then the Sandstorm takes out Exeggutor. He then sends out Rhyperior, and I switch to Crobat to avoid Earthquake, then head into Roserade, who is able to hang on after a powerful Stone Edge, and then get a one-shot with Giga Drain, getting back most of our health. His last Pokemon is Machamp, and I send in Tentacruel, who takes a weak Ice Punch, then we get off a Surf for about half, and take a crit Stone Edge down to 19 HP, and we only survived the Sand damage on 6 HP. Phew, another close call with Tentacruel, and I really don't want to lose him, so I bring in Toxicroak on Dynamic Punch, which leaves us confused, so I then opt to switch again to Gengar, who gets burnt by Fire Punch, but it's not a big deal. We finish him with a Sludge Bomb, getting us our last badge. Now, as if that wasn't enough gym leader fights for one day, I typically take on the gym leader rematches before the league rematch, though to save time I don't usually go over the fights, I just let you know if we suffer any new deaths during these fights, and in this case I actually lose Nidoking to Surge after his Raichu crits me with Surf, so that's unfortunate. And then against Blue I make the same risky switch into Roserade versus Rhyperior, and this time we do get crit by its Stone Edge, which takes her out. RIP to both of them. Some unfortunate losses, but we defeat Blue once again, and now we can move on to taking on the league one more time before we face Red. Against Will, I lead Crobat and U-turn out on Exeggutor, which despite being 4 times effective doesn't one-shot, but I can go into Drapion as he sets up Trick Room, and then I get up a Swords Dance as he heals, and then we're put to sleep, but the only move he can hit us with is Leaf Storm, which we resist, and then when we wake up we get up another Swords Dance and take it out with Poison Jab. I think at +4 a Crunch should take out Bronzong. Well, with a crit it definitely will, and then from there his entire team goes down to Crunches. Jinx has a shot to do something, but misses Lovely Kiss, so we're moving on pretty easily to Koga. I actually can choose the order of the Elite Four in this game, but I still always go in order. Anyways, Crobat one-shots his Toxicroak with Fly, and then the same is true against Venomoth. Muck we can't one-shot, so I bring in Drapion, who takes little from Ice Punch. We get up a Swords Dance as he misses Gunk Shot, and an Earthquake takes him out, as well as Swalot. His Crobat just U-turns out into Skuntank, which reminds me we haven't used our Skuntank yet in this run, mostly because we just have Drapion doing its job, but better. We take it out, and then with 2 crunches the Crobat goes down, getting us by our second member, still only having used Crobat and Drapion. Against Bruno, Toxicroak gets in on the action and he sets up incredibly easily against the lead Hitmontop. It only has Fake Out followed by 2 fighting moves and a rock move which we resist, so we can just get up a substitute and set up several bulk ups. Our sub gets broken, but we can just go behind another and then at +5 get our health back with a one-shot Drain Punch. Infernape breaks our sub but goes down to a Drain Punch, and then Hitmonlee goes down to Poison Jab. Lucario goes down to 1 Drain Punch, and then Hitmonchan and Machamp are both one-shots with Poison Jab. Very easy. Now I think to no one's surprise, Toxicroak will play a large role against Karen as well, however I lead Tentacruel to bait Fake Out, and then I send Gengar in for the immunity, which then baits a Night Slash that I have Vileplume take, and then head back into Tentacruel on Ice Punch. I think I did this to get Vileplume, Gengar, and Tentacruel to level 82 to make my rare candies more effective before facing Lance. Anyways, I bring in Toxicroak who takes the Ice Punch from Weavile decently. Thankfully we don't take a crit or freeze and I can get up a bulk up. Our sub still gets broken with 1 Ice Punch though, so I hit a Drain Punch that Weavile lives because of its Focus Sash, which then will prompt Karen to heal, meaning I can get behind another substitute and get up another bulk up before taking it out from behind a new sub and getting back most of my lost HP. At +2, Poison Jab one-shots Honchkrow, and then Absol and Shiftry are easy one-shots as well. So is Houndoom, it just nasty plots instead of attacking, and then Umbreon also goes down in a single Drain Punch, so we're moving on to Lance. As I said, I use up our rare candies as our new level cap is now set to 88, and we once again start off by one-shotting his Gyarados with Gengar's Thunderbolt. So far so good, but we gotta switch on Tyranitar, so just like against Blue, I bring in Toxicroak who has no issue taking down Tyranitar with 4 times effective Drain Punch. Garchomp, however, will destroy me with an Earthquake, so I bring in Crobat for the immunity, then chip it with U-turn into Tentacruel as he misses Stone Edge, and then our Ice Beam takes it out. Just like we drew it up last time. However, this time I make a big time mistake by leaving Tentacruel in on Flygon. Our Ice Beam doesn't one-shot even with Choice Specs due to its Yache Berry. Now I can't remember if I forgot the Yache Berry or just thought our Specs would get us the one-shot anyways, but either way, an awful play that loses our Tentacruel to its Earthquake. RIP. I bring in Gengar who can 2-shot it with Shadow Ball after he heals, and then against Dragonite I stay in and Sludge Bomb for under half as we barely live its devastating Outrage. Its Citrus Berry brings it back to 3/4 health, and I've got to switch so I bring in Drapion who despite its fantastic physical bulk will still be 2-shot by Outrage. I want to get it to where it will be confused, so I bring in Crobat on its last Outrage before that, but this one crits for a one-shot and Crobat goes down. RIP. I bring in Vileplume, and Dragonite hits itself in confusion, followed by a crit from our Sludge Bomb to take it out, and then the last Pokemon is Charizard. Here, I decide it's best to let Vileplume go down to give us a safe switch, but amazingly, we live a stab overheat and are able to get off a Sludge Bomb. I know Vileplume is pretty bulky, but that is very impressive, and I decide to spare her and bring in Toxicroak who lives in Air Slash, and I'm hoping to outspeed, but we don't, and Toxicroak gets taken out. Negative speed nature definitely hurt us there, but now we can finally end Lance's onslaught the same way we opened this battle, with a Thunderbolt from Gengar. That really wasn't great play on my part, but of course we salute the sacrifice of our beloved team members. It won't be in vain. Of course I must recoup before facing Red, and I train up some new members who haven't gotten much of a chance to shine yet, but they will help us close this thing out. I get my picture with the squad before entering Mount Silver, where our final battle awaits us against Red. I lead Vileplume against him, and I think this is partially why I saved Vileplume against Lance. Pikachu can't really do much to us, and our Earth Power easily takes it out. For as great as Toxicroak has been all run, it wouldn't have really been that great against Red's team, so I ultimately feel okay about this decision. This time against Charizard, I get Vileplume out of there and have Muck take 2 Fire Blasts, which it lives with its great special bulk, and then we one-shot the Charizard with a Rock-type Strength. We bring Drapion in on Espeon to do his signature thing, which is avoid Psychic and then easily handle Psychic types with Crunch. Then against his Venusaur, I bring in Weezing, and it sets up Swords Dance, as this is a physical attacking Venusaur, but the only attack it can hit us with is Power Whip, which even at +4 doesn't look like a 2-shot on us, but we're put to sleep as we struggle to do much damage to it, and then Power Whip actually does manage to 2-shot us, so Weezing goes down. RIP. I bring in Drapion just to soften it up really. Now we can use Earthquake to get the one shot on us, so unfortunately another beloved team member won't make it to the end, but he did his job in this battle. RIP. I have Gengar hit a Sludge Bomb as red heals and it gets to about half, but that was after hail damage, so I don't think another will take it out. I then send in Muck as a sacrifice to stall for more hail damage and he goes down. RIP. But this does allow Gengar to then finally take out the Venusaur with Sludge Bomb. It's like Hemlock came back to haunt us from the grave. But alright, we're still in a tricky spot here. It's a 2 vs 3, but Snorlax will be tough to take out with our 3 members. I have Quillfish get off an Intimidate to lower its attack, and then I hit some Poison Jabs, which are doing okay damage, but then he heals to full with Rest and wakes up from a held Chesto Berry. We're then taken to 42 HP from Body Slam, and here is where I use the ace up my sleeve in Destiny Bond. Quillfish goes down to another Body Slam, but of course Snorlax goes down with us. Alright, all that's left is the Blastoise. I send in Vileplume knowing it has a guaranteed Blizzard waiting for us, but after Vileplume tanked Overheat from Lance's Charizard, I know we will easily take the... Okay, this is really bad. I was expecting to lose Vileplume, but I was banking on at least damaging it pretty heavily with Giga Drain, but now with his Blastoise still nearly at full health, I have to bring in Gengar in a 1v1 to decide it all. I get off a Thunderbolt, which will be a 2-shot, and my heart is pounding out of my chest as it hits a Blizzard, and we take a crit but live, and thank Arceus there is no freeze. That was what I was afraid of the most, but we can just hit one more Thunderbolt to take out Blastoise and finish the run. Oh man, that is by far the hardest red fight we have had so far. Usually he doesn't give us that much trouble, but that just goes to show how tricky things can be when you play poorly and lose team members. We could have definitely handled that Venusaur much more easily with Crobat still alive, but hey, even if that made things more stressful for me, I hope it made the run more fun for you, the viewers, and so that is how I completed a hardcore Nuzlocke of Storm Silver with only poison types. This was definitely not the cleanest run in the world, but I guess that fits the theme this time. And you know what? Screw Nuzlocke rules. This story deserves a happy ending. Turns out my team members were all just in a coma, and after some special medicine from the doctor in Cianwood, the whole squad is back together, and me and my new family settle down into our new lives at the Safari Zone. Thanks for watching. Oh, and join my Discord, link in the description. Okay,